Welcome back to Laura's Design Studio. I am getting ready to pick colors and everything for the Slaya tray, which will be on Thursday. But while I'm cleaning up my stuff that I did yesterday, I wanted to, just so you know, my Slaya tray, it will be on a different video. But here I'm just gonna kind of pick colors and do the things that I need to do while I'm talking to you. So I will be moving around, so hopefully, you know, you can still hear me. I got a comment and I haven't responded to it yet, but I will. I got a comment about saying that they would like to subscribe to my channel, but that I was an irresponsible person by not wearing proper PPE. Now, I have touched on this, well, not even touched. I have stated this in many of my videos. But I know not everybody has seen it, so I am going to kind of try and get, try and make people understand that it's not that I'm being irresponsible or anything like that. I happen to think PPE is very important, but because of my medical conditions, PPE really isn't an option for me. Therefore, I do take a chance, and I'm well aware of that chance, of getting some type of reaction. Now, the reason that I don't wear PPE is because I have several autoimmune diseases, and normally you would say, well, then you should definitely be wearing PPE. And yes, for a normal person, that would be true. I have been diagnosed with RA, severe. I have been diagnosed with lupus, fibromyalgia, Crohn's, IBS, and who knows what else at this point in time, because it's kind of an ongoing problem. Because of these conditions, there are certain things that my lupus has done, and if you know or don't know, lupus is very different for everybody. Mine is they call it more extreme, but I wouldn't call it necessarily more extreme, because I know people with lupus that it has attacked. You know, I know a 28-year-old who was diagnosed with lupus at age 18, and she's already had 2 double lung transplants because her lupus attacked her lungs. My lupus, and I did kind of go over this in my video that's living with lupus, sorry. But I didn't address the PPE issue, which, you know, I feel that now, obviously, just doing it every once in a while in my videos is not sufficient. And I know everybody won't see this video, but, you know, at least maybe I can refer them to this video so that I don't have to explain all the time, because I know that, you know, a lot of my regular viewers have heard it and they hear it from time to time, and I'm sure that they're, you know, they don't need to hear that all the time. So my lupus targets very specific areas of my body. My lupus has targeted my skin, and so I get sores throughout my body, and they are open sores, and they can bleed and be very itchy, so much so I claw at them in my sleep, and you know, there's oftentimes I wake up and there's blood all over my sheets and stuff. My lupus has also attacked my vocal cords, which today I'm sure you can hear. I always have, since I've had lupus, and it first attacked my vocal cords, I have had several battles where, you know, I go without a voice for up to, my longest one was up to 3 months with absolutely no voice whatsoever. My lupus also has, and this is the major part, has attacked my central nervous system. It has left me with, basically what it's doing is eating away at my spine, and left me non-operable back, non-operable spinal issues, and you know, the only surgery that they could possibly do would actually, I stand the risk of being paralyzed. At this point, I can still walk, but I cannot stand for very, sometimes, you know, I can't even stand for a minute at a time. I have had to go to using a walker, which is very embarrassing to me. My lupus has also attacked my my mouth, my teeth. I have almost, the only teeth I have left are nubs, and they break and fall out just at a whim. So there's that. That's extremely embarrassing. I have been left to basically be a shut-in. I only go out if I need to go see my doctors, because I am very embarrassed by the fact that I use a walker, the fact that my mouth is extremely, you know, messed up, and I don't have the funds to do anything about that. Otherwise, it would be the first thing I did. My lupus has also caused me to have POTS. POTS is, it's a long name. Tachycardia syndrome is the TS. Postural orthotic tachycardia. What, I don't know, but it is, what it means is that my blood pressure bottoms out. And my blood pressure is extremely low anyway. And then it will bottom out to nothing. And to the point where I pass out. That is how I broke my ankle. My ankle was severely broken in November. I had fallen. It was 6 o'clock in the morning. I got up and I lived this, you know, I live in a different place now, and I'll explain that as to why. But I got up to go to the bathroom, and I became very dizzy. And as I entered my bathroom, I lived in a studio apartment, and the small hallway to my bathroom did not fit my chair, my desk chair here, which I rolled around in a lot to avoid passing out when I stand. And so I was walking down that little hallway, which, you know, isn't very far. My POTS kicked in. I became very dizzy, and I fell trying to get into the bathroom. I broke my left ankle very, very severely. Basically both sides, and crushed the joint of the ankle. The hospital in which I was taken to the emergency room couldn't even do the surgery on my ankle that needed to be done. They had to send me to a specialist because of the type of break that I had. The reasons that I'm telling you this is because it has led me to moving in with my son, which is where I'm at now, because my POTS and my lupus has gotten that bad. I had to stop working in 2015 and go on disability because I was basically a danger to everything. Myself, the workplace, you know. And it's become progressively worse at a higher rate of speed than it ever has. I was diagnosed with lupus 30 years ago. In relation to the PPE, I think that PPE is extremely important. I have said that in some of my videos. Like I said, I don't cover it in all of my videos, and that is why it's led me to this situation that I felt I needed to address that. Because it has destroyed my spinal cord, and I can no longer stand for any length of time. It has also left me with little to no feeling in my extremities. So this has caused many problems. My son does all the cooking because, frankly, it's dangerous for me. I've dropped pots, pans, broken dishes, because I can't feel properly what my grip is. I have broken a wine glass in my hand because I couldn't feel how tightly gripped that I had it. So therefore, wearing gloves is not something I can do, because putting gloves on top of my hands, which already have little to no feeling in them, I would not be able to, I wouldn't be able to feel like a resin cup in my hand, and that is more dangerous because then I would spill it. I have spilled resin all over, and so there are certain things that I need to do. And I know a lot of you would say, well, then you shouldn't be doing resin. That might be true, but everything that I have done has been stripped away from me. I was a competitive dart player, a very competitive dart player. I could no longer do that because I could not stand at the line and I could not feel the darts in my hand. I was also a competitive billiards pool player. I've been to nationals. That has been taken away because I can no longer stand at a table. I don't have the control with the cue that I once had. I used to crochet. I can't do that anymore because my hands are so bad. There are many other hobbies and crafts that I've done that I can no longer do because of this situation. So I continue to do resin because it's what I love. My doctors know I have never been allergic to a resin, which is kind of weird because I'm allergic to everything. Resin has never given me any reactions whatsoever. I am very picky about the resins which I use. I use Craftor because it is one of the, if you can call it, safe, but it doesn't put out the odors and the VOCs that most resins do. I was also told that, it's obvious that I get resin on my hands because I wipe my hands constantly. That is not necessarily true. I can't even feel if there's resin on my hands. So it has been a habit for me to wipe my hands when I'm working with the resin, whether it's on my hands or not, because I'm trying to be as safe as I possibly can be, not wearing gloves. I know it's a risk, but here's the thing. I have severe lupus, so am I willing to take that risk to be able to do something except for lie in my bed and watch TV or YouTube videos or whatever? Yeah, I am. And that is my choice. And like I said, I think everybody should wear their PPE. I don't deny that. But for my situation, it's actually more dangerous because the gloves make it to where I can feel absolutely nothing. So I have a better chance of, dropping a cup full of resin, which would then not only make a mess, but be all over myself. When you're at the point where you just don't have anything, you know, I've always hated grocery shopping, so, you know, I get my groceries delivered. I have passed out due to my pots at a Hobby Lobby. I have passed out at an Ollie's. Back then, I never broke bones or anything until this past November. And let me just tell you how severe my neuropathy in my extremities is. When I broke my ankle, it was broke on both sides and the joint was crushed. I didn't know that. I honestly laid for 3 hours on the bathroom floor because I couldn't figure out how to get up. I did not know that my ankle was actually broken. I just couldn't lift myself off of the floor because my right side is damaged more than my left, so I don't trust my right leg. So I always led with my left, and that was the one that was broken. When I got out of the bathroom, I actually managed to get myself in my chair. I looked at my ankle. Yeah, it was swollen. It was kind of black and blue, but I swore up and down that I had only sprained it and it would be, you know, I'd be fine. My son, after finding out that I fell that day, he came over after work and forced me to go to the hospital, to the emergency room, because I wasn't gonna go. There was no way I was gonna go. I've never broken anything. Why? You know, I didn't need to go, in my opinion. Bear, what are you talking about? I have 3 cats, which are my ESAs, emotional support animals. That one that you just heard is Bear. So when my son came and saw the condition of my ankle, he was going to take me to the emergency room, but my studio apartment had 4 steps, concrete steps down to the ground, and I couldn't make it down those steps. That's when he called the paramedics, and I still was in denial and said that there was no way that I broke my ankle. Now, at this point, you know, with as much pain as I should have been in, my blood pressure was 106/71. If anybody ever knows, when you know, if you're in pain, your blood pressure should skyrocket. Mine did not. They then put me in the ambulance and took me to the emergency room, and my blood pressure never went up. When they were trying to put my ankle back together, my blood pressure never fluctuated. They couldn't figure it out. They were like, you definitely do not feel pain in the proper way. And I said, oh, I know that. I know that. And that hospital was going to do the surgery that week, and they called me and said that they could not, that I needed to go see a specialist which was they considered the best in this area. So I did. He told me it was the worst break he's ever seen, and that it was going to require a pretty extensive surgery. So they did the surgery. He didn't want to do the surgery because normally with the types of medication that I'm on, one of which, well, a couple of which are chemo drugs, I should technically come off of all those because I also take an anti-inflammatory, which causes your blood to be thin and you bleed. But because this was an emergency, they had to go ahead and do the surgery. So on Friday that week, they scheduled the surgery. Sent me home on crutches. Somebody with POTS on crutches. Didn't make sense. Needless to say, I never used the crutches, and while I was not supposed to be putting weight on my ankle, I did because I couldn't manage the crutches. I felt more unstable and for it to be more dangerous than me just putting a little bit of pressure on my one ankle. He went in and did the surgery and found that the break was even more extensive than what he initially thought. I was in a cast and still non-weight bearing, which, you know, I was still putting some weight on it. And then, you know, he did a great job because in the end, I didn't even need physical therapy. I had full range of motion by the time the cast came off, and he asked me how I did that, and frankly, the way I did that is because when they initially put the cast on after the surgery, my foot was so inflamed, and as, you know, the days and weeks went by, the cast became so big that I could almost take my entire foot out of it. So while I was in the cast, I was doing stuff like rotating my ankle and, you know, flexing it. And of course, I'm still putting weight on it. But all that seemed to be in my favor for not needing physical therapy. So I tell you this because that is how damaged my spine is. That is why I do believe in PPE. I do think everybody should be wearing their gloves, their mask, and everything else. I take a risk because everything I loved doing has been ripped away. And so this is what I'm left with. I love resin. I love the way it works. I love the fact that I have no control over the resin, that it's going to do what it does. At this point, I cannot have another thing taken away. I was in a bad mental place for a long time. So I am not trying to be a bad example. I'm not trying to tell people that they shouldn't. They should. For me, it's not possible. I hope that people understand that. So my last message is, sometimes there is a reason people don't do things. And, you know, that's a risk I choose to take. But I always think people should wear their PPE. I hope this video helps. Okay, but now I need to get on and do my other videos, so I will let you guys go. And I hope to see you soon on the next video. Thank you for listening.